What's good, YouTube? Fairdale Kings coming back at you again with another EA Sports College Football 25 video. We're going to stay following the Dynasty Deep Dive blog, breaking down the information. This video is going to focus on recruiting and pitches. So we're going to go down that path. I believe this is probably going to be part one. It'll be a multi-part series just because of how much information is involved in this one. This will be like 18 different slides that we're going through. So probably going to be at least a 25, 30-minute video. I'm going to try to cut it down as much as I can, but, you know, we don't want to miss any information. Make sure that you guys comment down below, give me some feedback, hit like and subscribe, but let's get into it. So stage one is discovery in recruiting. The first stage of recruiting is discovery, where your goal is to learn information about the prospect as quick as possible. The faster you can learn information about the prospect, the sooner you can decide whether or not you need to keep pursuing them or not. Discovering intel and information about the recruit also is pivotal in how you craft your pitch and sell your school to the recruit. Uncovering that information before your competition gives you a huge advantage. Discovery starts with prospect identification. You can find the prospects to recruit from the prospect list. The prospect list defaults to the recommended filter, which identifies recruits with who would be a good fit for you. The recommended filter that they're using will utilize the same logic that the AI or the computer is using when they identify players to recruit. So let the computer do work for you. If you don't want to sit there and spend all that time, they're going to give you a crutch, guys. Use it. If you don't want to be a hardcore gamer that's going to go in here and do all this recruiting and stuff, the CPU is going to help you. Take advantage of it. For some of y'all, it might be the best idea is let the computer recruit for you. That's directed at one of the guys in my league, so don't take that personal. You know who I'm talking about if you're watching the video. But it takes into account your team position needs, what pipeline a recruit is from, a recruit's interest in your school, and their star rating. All that is going to be factors that will be involved in this process. So you can quickly filter the prospect list by using the LT or L2 button for the position filter, or the R2 RT filter, which allows you to filter by top prospects, star ratings, and state. If you like more control in your search, you can use the advanced search feature by pressing triangle or Y from within the prospect list. Advanced search allows you to search for prospects that match a specific set of criteria. You can search for recruits using the following criteria: position, player type, archetype, state, minimum star rating. So you want to look 3 stars or better, you can do that. Height, weight. If it's a quarterback, you can break it down by left or right-handed quarterback, and also interest in your school. So when viewing a recruit in a prospect list, you will be able to see bio information about the recruit, as well as key recruiting information like whether or not they have a deal breaker, if they satisfy a team need, how interested they are in your school, their recruiting stage, if they're open, top 8, top 5, top 3, and also how many scholarship offers they already have. All that information is at your disposal. Once you find a recruit that you're interested in, you can go ahead and add them to your board by pressing X or A. Keep in mind, you can only have 35 prospects on your recruiting board at one given time. Now, it's not to say that throughout the recruiting process, you might have 75 up there, but at any given time, no more than 35. So bear that in mind. Here's a screenshot of the recruiting board. It's Michigan. You see you got recruiting board, prospect list, transfer portal, my school, top classes. We went over those in other videos. But this gives you an idea. You know, this guy that they have at the top of the board is the number 3 ranked player. He's a 5-star left outside linebacker. They have a position of need, so they can tell the guy we got playing time. He's top 5. He's interested. He's interested in him. I think he's number 5 on their list. You can see that he's in his top 8 stage. So go down the list, figure it out. You can sort through all this information, get the vital statistics that you need to figure out whether or not you're going to add a guy to the list or continue recruiting him. Now, team needs. When setting up your board, it's important to understand your current roster strengths as well as its weaknesses. How many players are graduating next season? How many returning starters are you going to have? Within any of the recruiting screens, you can press R3 or the right stick to quickly see your needs at every position. I put out yesterday on Twitter a spreadsheet, and I had listed, because you can have 85 scholarship players, and it was quarterback, running back, fullback, wide receivers, tight end, left tackle, left guard, center, right guard, right tackle, kicker. And defensively, you got left end, right end, defensive tackles, left outside linebacker, right outside linebacker, middle linebacker, corners, free, strong safety, and punter. I know what my target is every year. Now, I might say I'm always going to carry 8 receivers, but you know what? If there's a 5-star out there, I'm signing number 9 and I'm going to neglect somewhere else. That's a choice I'm making. But you need to have a plan. You can't just sign 35 random players and at the end of the day, you don't cover your needs. Have a plan. Have some kind of path that you're going to get success with, okay? Stay true to your plan. You might bend the rules at times, but you don't want to sign 20 receivers like Bobby Petrino when he was at Louisville and then have no offensive lineman, no defensive lineman, okay? The team needs spreadsheet will show you an overall letter grade for each position, as well as a breakdown by school year for the players who are currently on your roster. It also shows you how many additional players you need at the position and the number of players you've signed or targeted at that position. How many players you need at a position will vary by scheme. For example, if you run a pass-heavy offensive scheme like the veer and shoot, you'll need 10 wide receivers, whereas a pro-style offense only needs 6. Your scheme is tied to your playbook, and the only way to change it is by changing your offensive and defensive playbook, which you can change your playbook at any time. Here's a hint. To get around that 10 wide receivers for the veer and shoot, I would switch my offense to pro style if I only signed 7 receivers, and now I don't have to worry about filling the rest of my roster with walk-ons. But you got to know what the balance is. So you can always switch as a workaround, as a little bit of a cheat, switch your playbook, and it changes the requirements for those position groups, okay? Keep that in mind. As you continue to target and sign players, your team needs will update accordingly, okay? So that's always dynamic. It's not static. It's going to keep changing. Here's another screenshot of team needs. This is Michigan State's board. Quarterback on the roster signed. You see that over on the right. It also shows you, your overall group rating at quarterback. They're a B. Halfback, they're a B. Fullback, they're a C-. It tells you the needs, the total players already on the roster, how many you sign, how many you targeted. So it's a complete breakdown. They're giving you the information. It's at your disposal. I like to also sit there and put it in a spreadsheet myself. That's just me. So I'll have a laptop pulled up and have all that information, or I'll hook up another one of my screens here. So I'll get all that sorted out before the game kicks off. Now, recruiting hours. Recruiting hours are your core currency to spend on recruiting actions and scouting each week. The amount of recruiting hours you have depends on your team prestige. Let me say it again. Your recruiting hours depend on team prestige. 5 stars are going to have more hours than a 1-star. So, and it also depends on what part of the season you're currently in. Teams with higher teams prestige will have more recruiting hours each week. This is meant to model the recruiting resources a program has. Higher tier programs have significantly more resources available to them. For example, in the preseason, a 5-star program is going to have 1,000 recruiting hours compared to only 350 hours for a 1-star program. The time of year also impacts your recruiting hours. During the preseason and in off-season recruiting, you don't have to prepare for a game each Saturday. So as a result, you have significantly more time to spend on recruiting than you do in the heart of the regular season. In addition to the maximum recruiting hours you can spend in a week, each prospect has a maximum number of hours that they can spend on them in a given week. The default maximum number is 50 hours, but there's always an exception to the rule. That number can be increased to a maximum of 70 hours if you have the always be recruiting ability for that position. So say, for instance, your position of need, say you're a defensive coordinator, or offensive coordinator, and you have the always be recruiting, and your, specialty is running backs, you'll get 70 hours to recruit running backs. That's a nice bonus, compared to your peers that might all only have 50 because that's the default number. You get that bonus 20 hours. That's nice. You can spread that out, okay? Now, recruiting board. The recruiting board is where you'll spend the bulk of your time in recruiting. The general layout of the board will be familiar to many. You've played the game before. You know what we're talking about. For those that are new to it, you'll get familiar with this real quick because you're going to be on this page often. On the left, there's a list of all the recruits who are currently on your board. Each recruit shows high-level information about their status, including how many hours you've allocated to them, how much you've already scouted them. That's the binoculars. If you've offered them a scholarship, that's the piece of paper. And if you've scheduled a visit, that's the airplane outline. Their stage, whether or not they're open, top 8, top 5, top 3. And it's going to show you their interest level in the school. First, second, third, so on and so forth. You can filter the list using L2 or the left trigger. For example, you can filter by prospects who are ready for a visit. You can filter by prospects you haven't offered a scholarship to. The recruiting stage, position, more, whatever you want to do. You can also sort the board by national rank, interest status, recruiting stages. Of course, the board can also be manually reordered using R2 or the right trigger. Selecting a recruit allows you to dive in deeper and begin interaction with them. At the top of the screen, you will see a bio information about the recruit as well as a large bar with stages on it. This bar represents the recruit's overall progression toward each stage and ultimately committing to a team. The dark area of the bar is how much the recruit progressed week over week. Within the Overview tab, you can see a summary of where each school stands. Similar to the top bar, each school has their own bar, which represents their progression with the recruit. The top schools list is a zoomed-in snapshot of the recruit's progression to the next stage. Once the team fills their bar, the recruit will progress to the next stage, and the top schools' bars will also be reset. Any team below the cut line will be locked out and no longer able to talk to the recruit. So you got to be, if it's top 5, you need to be within top 5 to be able to keep talking to them. And you see that here, all the information I just said. The recruits on the left, you can sort all that. In the middle says top schools, so like Notre Dame's number 1. You see how far they have progressed. Penn State's 2, Ohio State, Michigan, Wisconsin. So you see all that information there. It's all relevant. It's a good summary. Now, scouting. Before you start offering scholarships and dedicating your limited recruiting hours and resources to a prospect, it's very important that you make sure you're targeting the right ones for your program. You don't want to waste your time. So during the preseason, you're only able to scout and offer scholarships. So it's a great time to scout players, get information on them, and ensure you're targeting the right prospects. In College Football 25, we're introducing a new scouting system designed to represent the ambiguity and progressive discovery of a high school player's skills. You see here, this is where they're recruiting. I've got my North Carolina swag on. It's up here on the board. But you see right now, I don't know nothing about this player. It's all question marks. So we've got to find out. We've got to go in depth. We've got to recruit this guy. Now, after I sit here and do a little bit of recruiting, you see, okay, it shows you 10% range or 25% range, depending on what the size of the bar is, where it says under attributes. So, this guy's 60% recruited or scouted. So you get more information as you spend more time in here. So that information will become available. And then as you get to 100% scout, you're going to see all his numbers. You don't see an overall ranking, but you're going to see those individual numbers that are important. Catching traffic, run block, acceleration, so on and so forth. So all that becomes available. Prior to scouting a player, you'll only be able to see their star rating, height, weight, hometown, position, and archetype. You will see question marks on their attributes, abilities, and development traits. The attributes represent the top 10 ratings for their archetype. Each attribute has 4 states of scouting. Unscouted, which represents by question marks. That's the default state for every recruit. Partially scouted, which at this stage you will see a horizontal bar appear. The left side of the bar is 0, the right side is 99. Within the bar is a gold zone that covers 25% of the bar space. So the one that had the larger bar, that recruit's ratings could fall anywhere within that 25%. Okay, so you have a vague idea, but you don't know the player's true rating. So it's somewhere within that range. Mostly scouted. Now, once you have mostly scouted players attribute, you have a much clearer picture of that prospect. At that point, the gold zone is now reduced to only 10%. So now, if it looks like 80 to 90%, you're going to know, hey, this guy could be an 80 or a 90 overall. It falls within that category. And then fully scouted is a rating. Fully scouted, you know exactly how good the prospect is, and you get a numerical value. Each time you scout a prospect, you will reveal a limited amount of information about them. Sometimes scouting a player will fully scout an attribute, while other attributes may only be partially scouted. Additionally, each scouting action will also reveal physical and mental abilities. While attributes and abilities are able to be scouted, a player's development trait is not. So when we talk with coaches about identifying a player's development trait, they overwhelmingly said in an intangible factor that is difficult to identify without a distinct intuition and direct in-person contact with the recruit. So as a result of that discussion with actual real coaches, the primary time you will unlock a prospect's development trait is on National Signing Day. However, if you own the mind reader ability, there is a chance you will learn their development trait when you spend time with them during their official visit. But for the most part, you're not going to know about a player development traits until you actually sign on the dotted line. Now, the real coach they talked with also described how the level of ambiguity, tongue twister, ambiguity and uncertainty around a player's skill set is higher for lower star rated players. That's because of how much visibility the top recruits get from social media, scouts, and high profile camps. Conversely, lower star rated recruits generally have less visibility, which leads to a greater level of uncertainty and unknown what their true skills really are, because they just haven't really been scouted. No one's seen, their huddle film. This creates an opportunity to find a diamond in the rough. EA has modeled this uncertainty and unknown with their gem or bust system. So when scouting a player, there's a chance you identify that their true skill is actually better or worse than their star rating indicates. For example, a 4-star bust, so a bust who's a 4-star, he's still going to be a quality 3-star prospect, while a 4-star gem has the skill level of an actual 5-star player. So it works both ways. Of course, even if a player is a bust, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're a bad player. It's just they're not as good as what you anticipated. A 5-star bust is still going to be pretty darn good. More likely he's going to be a 4-star. So this system creates a lot of variance in lower star rated prospects and provides you with the opportunity to build your program with high quality players who slip through the cracks of the recruiting rankings. Landing top blue chip prospects is incredibly difficult. So they're very rare. So this can be highly effective recruiting strategy to build your program. Think back to the rise of Boise State and the consistency of Oregon State back in the early to mid 2000s. Both those programs excelled at finding gems who are under recruited and overlooked by big schools. Find the ideal pitch. Once you've determined a prospect meets your initial criteria, it's time to begin uncovering intel about their motivations and what they care about. Remember, every prospect has 3 motivations they care about, which comprise their ideal pitch. Your goal is to discover that ideal pitch as quickly as possible so that you know if their motivations align with your program, since you have that information at your disposal when you need it when you begin pitching in stage 2. In stage 1, there are 5 recruiting actions you can use to uncover information about the prospect. In addition to uncovering information, you also gain some influence with the prospect. Each action has a recruiting hour cost and corresponding benefit. The more hours you spend on a recruit, the faster you will uncover information and the more influence you'll also gain with him. You can increase how fast you uncover information and the amount of influence you earn with the most influential ability, which gives a bonus to recruiting actions. The 5 recruiting actions are as follows. Offer scholarship. Scholarships show the prospect you're very interested in them. As a result, you will gain a small weekly influence bonus with the prospect after offering a scholarship. Additionally, you will not be able to bring them in on a campus or an official visit, though, or receive a commitment from that prospect until you've offered them a scholarship. So you have to offer them a scholarship before they can ever commit. You can also search their social media. As strange as that sounds, spend some time scrolling through the player's social media to learn a little bit more about them. This will give you a very small amount of influence when they see you like their story. Just be careful not to like an image from 3 years ago. Now, where your wife or your girlfriend could get mad is you can also DM players. Message the player directly on social media to start a conversation and learn more information about them. DMs will give you a small amount of influence as you start to build that relationship. Next is contact friends and family. So make a few phone calls with the player's family and close friends to learn more about what that prospect values. This action will also gain significant amount of influence with the prospect when word gets back to them that you called and spoke with their grandma, who then starts raving about you and your program at Thanksgiving dinner. Finally, you can send the house. From the recruiting coordinator to every coach on your staff, send every available resource you have after a prospect to gain as much influence with them as possible. As you uncover their motivation, they will no longer display a question mark. If the motivation displays a red X, the recruit does not care about it. If it displays a green check mark, though, this is one of the 3 motivations they care about. So like I said in a previous video, and someone tried to correct me, There are only 3 green check marks. The rest of them are going to be red X's. They're not interested. They don't care. So with this added depth in recruiting, we wanted to make sure that recruiting did not become a monotonous chore that took a significant amount of time each week. With this in mind, every recruiting action is set it and forget it, meaning they will stay week over week until the recruit either locks you out, commits, or you decide to change the recruiting actions. So say, for instance, you're in a dynasty, the wife's bugging you, the kids are harassing you, you know, just common things, and you forget to update your recruiting status. It's going to do it for you until you go in and you change that information, that path. It's going to stay the same. It's on default. So, you know, it's a little bit of a cruise control. You don't have to spend all the time in there, you know, if you don't want to. Now, if you want to go in and look weekly and add recruits and check the status, which you should, you can. But if you do forget, your commissioner advances the dynasty on you, they got you covered. Near the end here, we're on screen 18. This, again, is the recruiting board. This is Michigan's recruiting board. You see this is Quincy Ogletree. He's a 4-star recruit, #1 left outside linebacker. You've got a choice. Looks like you're locked out because you're in the top 8, so you can't actually schedule a visit yet. You have offered him a scholarship. You've unlocked 2 of his motivators, so you still have some more work to do. But this is just another glance into the recruiting aspects. And then you see here, now, as you set your course of action, you can reach out to them on social media, DM the player, contact friends and family, send the house for 50 hours. Soft sell is locked, so you can't do that. But, you know, search the social media. It takes 5 hours. So you've got options here. So I like this. I mean, this is going to be part 1. We're 22 minutes in. This was, like I said, we're stage 1 discovery. So I'll get the second video up here shortly, but this will get you started, you know, in recruiting. There's some good information here. Make sure you guys review it, put it in the back of your mind. I'm making an Excel spreadsheet to keep track of my roster management. So I know, first off, how many players I want at each position. I don't want to be, every time I go into recruiting, hey, do I need 12 receivers? Do I need 9 receivers? I know what my number is. That's my number. I mean, I can always, you know, it's not a set in stone kind of thing, but it gives me a great idea. And I've always done this. You know, I carry like 3 left tackles, whatever. I've got a number in my head and I'm going to follow it. So it just keeps me on the path as I do this. If you guys enjoyed this video, though, make sure that you hit like and subscribe, comment down below. Fairdale Kings, and I'm out.